What if the key to attracting top talent for your practice wasn't the higher salaries, but something already inside your practice? How can a diagnostic program actually fuel staff recruitment and professional growth? And why are diagnostic services becoming a secret weapon for private practice owners who want to build unstoppable teams? Well, join me in today's episode of Your Practice, Your Money, where clinical success meets financial freedom. See you in a moment. Welcome back to Your Practice, Your Money, where clinical success meets financial freedom. I'm your host, Dr. Dimitrios Kostopoulos, and today we have a very, very interesting episode. We are going to uncover one of the most overlooked but most powerful drivers of staff recruitment and career development in private practice, and that is your diagnostic program. Joining me today is a very special guest, the Deputy CEO of Hands-On Diagnostics, Mr. James Savas. And James works directly with clinics across the country, helping them implement diagnostic testing programs. And along the way, he's seen how diagnostics not only transform patient care and practice revenue, but also how they play a pivotal role in recruiting, developing, and retaining top-tier clinicians. Whether you are struggling to hire, looking to keep your team engaged, or just wanting to position your practice as the employer of choice, today's episode is going to give you a whole new perspective. So, James, welcome.
Of course. Good to
Awesome.
hear.
Very good. So, you've been the deputy CEO of HODS for several years now. You've seen physical therapists in private practice going through COVID, the
Yep.
issues of dealing with COVID in many viewpoints about patients, but also retaining therapists, how practices are dealing with the so-called shortage of physical therapy talent in private practices.
I like the comment you made about the employer of choice, that idea, right? And what I see is certainly these days, in the last 5, 10 years, you've seen a lot of individuals, if they're employees, professionals, if they're sticking with an employer, they're sticking with an employer because they're provided with mentorship opportunities and a future, some vertical motion, right, in their career path. Both of those things are solved with the implementation of diagnostic testing, as an example. What I've seen is it's very interesting when an employer starts even promoting the idea of, hey, we're looking for a diagnostic PT, right? Not just a physical therapist. You get a different breed. You get somebody who wants to further their career, better themselves, better their patients, and so on. I've seen definitely there has been a shortage. I see some improvement these days at the second quarter of this year. There's improvement in the number of candidates out there. But I do see that people that stick around at an employer, stay with them for a while, if they're given the incentive, like I mentioned, of the potential to be a diagnostic PT, make that transition to a career path that provides them a future too, right? Incentives, bonus structure, because certainly if you are doing diagnostic testing, as you are able to bill that through insurances, and you're able to broker and gap that pay differential, because you can now pay potentially and bonus these PTs more, in alignment with many of them coming in and wanting probably six figures nearly from the beginning after graduation. So when you look at the value of the retention and the mentorship, the value of people wanting to keep people to stay and not go to the next, grass is green or the next big thing, and the ability to pay them what they feel they deserve and actually exchange with you as an owner appropriately the diagnostic tool. You see the retention of diagnostic PTs far and above the retention of just PTs in the 50 some odd practices I've worked at so far with HODS.
In any type of recruitment conversations I've had, we always say, okay, money is not the number one motivator of people to get a job and stay with it. However, I have to say that to a certain degree, money can play a very pivotal role, especially when the money differential is very significant.
Yep.
And what mostly private practices are competing against in terms of for talent and salaries is with hospital organizations. Then I had a recent episode in the podcast about the Medicaid loophole that hospitals are using to get 3 and 4 times more than a private practice for exactly the same product, for exactly the same visit, right?
Yep.
So when physical therapists are able in a hospital to get 20% higher salaries, 25% higher salaries, how the private practitioner will be able to compete. So money does have a role to play on that. So what are ways that a private practice, when they have a diagnostic PT, they can structure to be able to pay their staff? Is it only higher base salary, or there are other ways that they can have the staff participate in the profit of the practice or the production or whatever to be able to earn higher dollars?
Sure, yeah, I call it in the game, right, of production and increased value to the patients. Certainly, yeah, the bases can shift. Certainly, bonus incentives. If you look at what's the average PT out there making, I don't know the average nationwide, but if they're being paid somewhere between 35 and 55 and so on dollars an hour, and you're getting paid, reimbursed $60 a visit or so, then you have to look at the value there, right? So there is the bonus side for sure, per EMG nerve conduction test, per neuro or MSK ultrasound test, bonus incentives. And you also have referral bonuses, right? From whether that from your internal staff, right? From PTs that are not diagnostic PTs to the diagnostic provider. And there is actually another level, I'd call it, of a model, or another phase to the model, where now potentially you have that diagnostic PT outside going into others' clinics, other PT clinics, other doctors' offices, chiropractors. And now they're in those, and we have a few members that have literally in hospitals, the local hospitals, providing EMG testing. When that level is achieved, then it's changed the game even further, because now you have a diagnostic PT just in some cases, and we have a few clients like this, just out there full-time doing diagnostic testing. So the reimbursement of those tests and then the ability to pay them and bonus them even more is there. So that's a couple of the general buckets there, I'd say.
Can you describe a little bit somebody who joins HODS? How do they go about bringing that and promoting that to the physical therapy community so that they can get staff to work for them, to attract new talent? And talk to us also a little bit about the HODS Career Network.
I myself do the recruitment, the majority of it for the HODS network. So I personally, with the board of directors and some sales people sometimes as well, and PTs, I will engage myself with the students at a CSM event, example, an APTA combined sections meeting with a booth. And at this meeting, we're doing demos to the students. So these are photographs at the conferences that we attend where we're doing live demos to students. And I'll tell you one thing, a good, interesting point. I've been with hands-on diagnostics for 5 years. And the first couple of years, we saw that maybe 25% at the very most of students came to us and had exposure to diagnostic testing, one way or the other, mainly ultrasound, much less EMG nerve conduction. But we went this past year to the CSM event, and it was different. We had about 50%, I would say, of the students who are second-year students, maybe they're just about to graduate, say that they had ultrasound. Maybe that was even 60%. Even EMGs, they had a class in it. So I love seeing that they're getting exposure in their student years, which is unusual. It wasn't there 5 years ago. So yeah, to what we do for the members, the efforts we do, I'll go over two main things. One, we have something called the Jobs Portal, and this is exclusive to graduates of some of the education components in the hands-on diagnostics family. We post those students on here so that they can be selected and recruited by individuals. And these are individuals that are trained in manual therapy, right? They're proficient in manual therapy, nerve conduction testing, EMGs, ultrasounds, and so on, right? So that's one thing we do. It's like my mini monster, a little monster.com type thing here that we do for members and students both. Here's an example of some of the ads some of the clients have placed to attract our students to their practices. So that's one thing we do, and that I maintain it myself. I make sure that people are getting interest from both sides. We also have what I call the Career Network, which is how Dr. K referred to it. So that is the jobs portal, but also it is the live attendance to the CSMs. And then we're engaging these students. So not just a demo and introduction at a CSM event, but it's also giving them, this is an example of what we offer them. Every student receives a booklet of every single HODS member around the country, a bio on the practice, a bio on the owner, and a bunch of information about why you'd want to move to, in this case, El Paso, Southern Florida, Lafayette, California, and so on, right? So this is given, and it's a courtesy. It's a courtesy we give to the members in the HODS family that we promote them openly to the students, again, at these events. And then post-event. So now we're post-event, and we want to engage these individuals. We have email campaigns we push out on a monthly basis. And we encourage them to come to events like this. They're offered free attendance to certain webinars that might cost a few dollars or low-cost attendance. They're offered events like this where there's webinars that we host, introducing them to the side of diagnostics, maybe a little bit of the business side, but the majority of the clinical side. As they get into school, they start jobs. And at this point, I'll just let you know that we have over 600 students that I've personally shaken hands of at these events over my years that we constantly are in touch with. And I'll tell you the truth. We had an individual in California that had gotten a call. We did the CSM event when it was in, I believe, San Diego. And there was a PT from up north, Sacramento, somewhere up north, California, hours away, of course. And they had remembered about 2 years later about this diagnostics thing. I don't know if that was through a friend or maybe some of our promotion, but they wound up getting an interview with one of our members in Southern California as a result, ultimately, from 2 years ago's CSM. And I have other stories like that. That's an example of keeping them in touch, keeping them networking, keeping them coming to these events, and getting them interested in the concept of diagnostics, and then providing these HODS members around the country as the solution to a scholarship education, basically, in diagnostic testing. And every member has their own rules, policies with staffing and so on and onboarding. However, I can tell you that in general, it's perceived and offered to a student interested in diagnostics that they would get some kind of scholarship as they come in, because of course the member does well by adding diagnostic testing or adding more diagnostic testing, and then the student themselves increases their value. So that's some of the things we do for the members.
That's awesome. And especially the idea of the HODS Career Network, I really love it. And it really, I mean, I have seen the reality of it, that you get hundreds and hundreds of students coming to the booth or approaching to get more data, more information. Talk to us a little bit about how a HODS member, because of the higher reimbursements they are getting, they are able to help with student loan repayment programs and get also a tax advantage of that. which is a major attractor also for new talent, especially recent graduates. And considering the fact that, let's say, an average physical therapy practice where they're going to do a PT visit, it will last half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. And in that PT visit, they're going to make, I don't know, $75, $80 for the visit. In some cases, a little more or a little less, compared to one single session of combination of EMG and neuro ultrasound, where they're going to average anywhere between $500 to $700. So we see like 3 to 10 times more, depending on the insurance and the
Right.
region, that HODS practices are making. So how can they utilize these funds and connect it to individual production of the therapies to help them pay for student loans?
I've seen a couple models. One, in lieu of a certain level of a bonus, there is some of that money paid towards the student's loan reimbursement on an annual basis. I've also seen other models where there is an initial amount of money provided if they sign up to be a diagnostics PT, and then over some time that is paid down for them. And often, regardless of that, I've seen these owners able to pay still a higher wage generally and a bonus plus the reimbursement. It can go either way where you're just paying solely towards the loan of the student. But I've seen it go both ways where they're able to still maintain a competitive salary, some slight bonus, and then 3/4 or so of that differential go towards the students, the loans.
And I would say another major thing that helps not only attracting initially the talent, but also having these people to remain in the organization for years to come is the fact that because you are investing in them and in their education significantly, in most cases, we sign with these people 3 to 5 year retention agreements where they stay in the practice in a way to repay back. I was looking also at large corporations and hospital organizations that they pay sign-on bonuses, right? 5,000 for with 1 year agreement, 10,000 with a 2 year agreement, and smaller practices that are struggling, that they're making the $60 and $70 and $80 a session. They're like, okay, how am I going to afford to pay $5 or $10,000 as a sign-on bonus? Well, think about this. If you're going to make $700 per session, if I divide $5,000 divided by 700, then patients are going to pay for the entirety of the sign-on bonus. The scales and measurements and measures of comparison are very different when you are involving diagnostics and its finances in the picture.
100%, you're right. On the value added to the therapist and so on. We had, I know, at least four examples, where a HODS diagnostic-trained employee left to move to blank, Texas, from New York to Texas, from New York to Florida, from Florida to Texas, a few different examples. I think up to Washington, somebody else. And they were hired by the closest HODS member in that area. So because they know the value, because once you're in the network and you're known, and with the 50 some odd clinics we have in the network, they get trained up in New York. They want to be in Texas or anywhere else. And then you wind up seeing them go to Texas. And we have at least 3 different sites in Texas, members that they could be working for too. And they have. And then the clinic they left from now has an opening through the jobs portal and through the CSM, and then they can be recruited there. So yeah, it is very much not just a network. And again, as a recruiter at heart and an HR director and professional at heart in my profession too, I love seeing that these individuals come out of the diagnostic education that we provide, and they are a different PT. They're a different guy. They're a different gal, right? The quality of the education is unmatched. And they come out, even though they had some great schooling in most cases, they come out and they're just a different being, right? It's almost like we did some enhancement over and above just the clinical side. I've seen some young people, you'd see them, you'd wonder why they're not an owner yet. And some of them are. Some of these 30-year-olds are given ownership piece in the diagnostic business. So looking at it from the viewpoint that I love to of the future generations and the young ones coming up and the value to the student to be in a diagnostic practice, gain that exposure, work with someone who's been doing diagnostics or is there with them doing it, learning together in some cases. It's a different level. It's a different camaraderie. It's a different family viewpoint. And because it's a network, like I said, then they know the guy in Texas. If they wanted to send a friend, it's a warmer and closer knit group than I would have thought when I first started.
Thank you for pointing this out. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to tell everyone here, please go to yourpracticeyourmoney.com and sign up for our weekly podcast. There are many resources there. And after you subscribe, share with friends and colleagues so they can also attend our podcast. But also, I would like to invite everyone to the 12th annual HODS Symposium, the HODS Symposium 2025. The symposium is entitled Primary Care Physical Therapy, Mastering Diagnostics, Manual Therapy, and Advanced Interventions. Master the science, apply the skill, and transform your practice. It's going to be a killer program. It's going to be pretty amazing. James, thank you for sharing so much valuable insights today. I know that our listeners will be able to put them in use and we can help them on that. And to our listeners, if you want to learn more about how diagnostics can grow both your practice and your team, head over to yourpracticeyourmoney.com for resources, training, information, and more episodes. Remember also to subscribe so you do not miss next week's episode, where we'll bring you another strategy to help you achieve clinical success and financial freedom. Well, until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep building your practice. Good night.